Okay, so today we will discuss about the new component called Apache Hive. Apache Hive data warehouse software facilitates reading and writing, managing the large data set residing in a distributed storage using SQL. So, if you want to say in simple term, it's basically a simple SQL interface for your large data set which is stored on the distributed storage. Like it can be a HDFS or it can be a S3 like storage, distributed storage. Okay. So what it does mean, what is mean by SQL interface? So example, uh, so okay. So what I'm trying to say is, so if you have say example, I have this customer data set. Example, I have customer.cs text file, or it can be as customers.csv, right? So your if the data is in structure format, right? Say example, you have a customer id and customer name, customer city, and customer gender, etc., right? So if you have if you have data in structure data, okay, and also if you have a semi-structured data, right? Generally, it is meant for structured data. Even if you have a semi-structured data like JSON or XML, there are some third-party libraries. Using that, you can actually uh, create a table for your data. So the idea is, if your data is in HDFS, as a file format, so we can create a table in Hive. So this is my Hive component. So what I can go and do is I can create a table here.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Sir, can you repeat, please? Actually, I missed initially. I thought it's cancelled. I joined 7 o'clock and.
Oh, all right, no problem. I have not discussed much. So basically, I am just introduced to what is
Okay.
Apache Hive component. So Apache Hive is a kind of SQL interface component, uh, which is used to create a tables and write queries on the data which is stored on the HDFS. If you have a large data set which is stored on HDFS, so this Apache Hive is going to act as a SQL interface. So I'm just giving a simple example. So if you have a customer data, or it can be any sales data which is in structure format, right? Example, if you have customer ID, name, customer city, and gender, etc. So for this large data set, you can create a table for it. Say example, create table. I can just go and define the customers. I can create customer tables, and I can define the schema, which is basically the structure of same structure, the same as your file schema in your how the fields are specified in your file. The same format you can actually specify in your table. So customer ID as int here. So generally numerical columns are used specified in 2 or 3 different data types. So if it is an integer, it is int data type. If you have a decimal points, you can use either float or double. So for customer name, you can actually specify if it is a string representation, the data type in Hive is basically string. Similarly, you can specify other columns. So right. So once you created data table, and you need to load your data into table, right? So there are two type of table in Hive, right? So one is tables in Hive. One is managed table, or it is also called internal table. The second type of table is called external table. Okay, so we'll discuss about. So before we go and discuss about this, let's see what are the other, basically why we need a Hive, why not MapReduce. We just go through these points and then we'll go and discuss about different tables available in Hive. So structure can be projected into data already in a SDF. So if you have a data is already exists in storage, the distributed storage, you can create a structure and you can start querying the table, which internally go and generate the MapReduce job, right? So when what is the distributed engine we have in Hadoop component, the distributed processing engine is called MapReduce. So even though you write SQL query, which is internally going to generate a MapReduce job, the MapReduce job which contains a set of map task and reduce task, and it is going to run on top of your Hadoop. That's how it is going to work. A command line tool and JDBC drivers are provided to connect user to the Hive. So there are multiple ways you can connect to Hive. Okay, so one is through I think I have some diagram to show you. If you look at this Hive architecture, right? So just for now, you just focus on this. So using a JDBC driver, like how you generally connect to the databases. So Hive also provides JDBC driver. Using that, you can connect to the Hive service. And we have CLI, command line interface. And using that, we can actually connect Hive. So, and we have other thrift server and ODBC driver also to connect Hive. Just keeping in mind that these are the different ways to connect Hive server. So we'll discuss the architecture in detail later. Okay, so the command line tool which they represent, which is CLI command line interface, and JDBC driver, which is provided by the Hive. That there will be a set of jars. Using that, you can connect to the Hive tables. Hive is powerful because it makes MapReduce easy, right? So the till last class we discussed, we need to write a lot of code in a MapReduce program, even to do simple tasks. So when you want to even do simple word count example, we were doing like driver code, and we are actually writing a mapper code, reducer code, and then build as a uh, the package called jar, and then you have to submit to the resource manager. So basically, you need to write some base code. Even the logic was very simple. Just for word count, we just in the mapper we are taking each line and breaking into words and just assigning a counter. And the reducer, we just do aggregate. It's only small piece of code we are writing, but to write that we have to write some lot of boiler codes. So that can be avoided when you use Hive. So it's going to be a simple uh, select statement with a different function usage, right? And easy to implement joins. So when we want to so when you take any data warehousing implementation, so the joins are inevitable, right? So you need to join multiple data set to get your result or output. So here it is very easy because you are going to represent as SQL queries. You're not going to do the MapReduce job. So we also saw how to perform map site join and reduce site join. It was difficult to implement it, and it has some optimized execution techniques. Okay, so that's something called partitioning and bucketing. So partitions and buckets. So we'll discuss what is that. So using these concepts, you can actually optimize your queries execution in better way. And it supports multiple file formats, the text input format or sequence format or Parquet format or say Avro format and all. And this is going to be a schema on read. What is schema on read is basically while reading a schema only, it is going to, so basically based on the schema you define, it is going to read your data. So basically the columns which you are specified in the table, it is going to, with the table it is going to refer your data set and read it. Okay, so I'll just discuss this different Hive and RDBMS, then we can have any questions if you have. So it just simple comparisons. What is the difference between, or maybe how do you compare Apache Hive components with the RDBMS systems like MySQL, Oracle, or SQL Server? Both supports a SQL interface. Like when I say SQL interface, so it is able to provide you the right to your SQL queries. Focus on analytics and big data analytics, OLAP and batch processing. So Hive is meant for OLAP, online analytics processing. So you can write complex queries, you can do complex joins and do that. And RDBMS are meant for real-time transaction processing. Like think of as a system like where you use the banking transactions and even credit card transaction, those things. And also it also RDBMS also provides the OLAP. All your data warehousing databases are OLAP. But when it comes to Hive, it's more of OLAP and ETL processing, and majorly it's batch and big data processing. It can handle large petabyte of data. That's it. And limited transaction support. Okay, so we cannot actually perform all the ACID properties on Hive. There are few limitation has come, like means you can do little transaction operations, but it's are limited. Okay, so we can use update or delete on Hive tables, with some limitations. Here we know RDBMS supports the transactions. Distributed processing via MapReduce. So Hive supports distributed processing using a MapReduce. We don't have distributed processing in Hive, but some it is available in some vendors in RDBMS if you consider. Scale to hundreds of nodes. So if we have basically how many number of nodes you have in your cluster, your Hive job is going to perform better. Okay, and we can able to scale, add more nodes to get a good performance in terms of Hive. It is limited. It has limitation for scaling nodes. Some of the RDBM systems earlier days it is not supporting the multi-node RDBM structures. Nowadays they're providing with the limitations and build on commodity hardware. So we know Hadoop or big data systems are built on commodity hardware. These RDBMS systems are mostly it's specialized hardware or proprietary hardware. So if you take Teradata and other type of uh, systems which are very proprietary, even HP, IBM DB2, these are all like software which needs some proprietary software. And also it needs some specialized hardware. Okay, so limited indexing support. Okay, so in Hive we have indexing, but again you need to configure a lot of things and it has limitation. And in RDBMS we have full indexing support. No triggers in Hive, whereas we have triggers in RDBMS. So these are the some of the points we can compare how Apache Hive is uh, can be compared with the Apache RDBMS. Do you have any question on this?
No.
All right, thanks. Okay, now we'll go and discuss about the tables in Hive. So we discussed one is a managed table or internal table. The other type of table is called external table. Okay, so what is managed tables? Okay, before we discuss about this managed tables. Okay, so before we discuss managed table, let's understand a little bit of Hive architecture. Okay, so um, Hive has two main components. Okay, one is a Hive driver and another is a Hive metastore. Okay, so Hive driver basically you can think of as it's basically the Hive execution engine which translates your Hive query and into MapReduce job and runs on the MapReduce framework. Okay, you can think of as Hive driver. Uh, gets Hive queries request from CLI, a command line interface. If you type some command, okay. So let me. So if you want to work with Hive, as I said, the data which is sitting on SDFS is the one which we are going to uh, refer, means read it, right? So basically, Hive is going to keep your data in SDFS. So, and also it is going to generate a MapReduce job to do the computation. So, SDFS and the yarn service has to be running to work with Hive. So that's the reason I'm just starting it. Okay, so all the SDFS and yarn related services running. Now I can just so I'm going to type CLI, right, which is going to launch me a command line interface. That's what these components which they specify. It is like think of as any like somebody, if somebody worked on MySQL, you have MySQL CLI. It's a command line interface where you can type your command, which will be run on your SQL engine in MySQL. Right. Similarly, Hive has a command line interface called Hive CLI. So I go here, I can type show databases. It will show the databases from Hive, right? I can also just by default there will be one database called default. There is a database name itself called default, which comes with the Hive. After that, you can create about how many number of database you want. So then you can use the show tables.
Pari, sorry to interrupt here, but then to install Hive, what you have to do? Sorry, I missed that. If like you've told it.
So yeah, so basically you have installation steps to. I will actually share you that. Probably we will do tomorrow. Okay, so probably today I'll just uh, make it very simple. Like I will explain you about the Hive internals, how it works. The installation part will take tomorrow. Is that fine?
Okay, okay. I thought that. Sure, yeah, no
I will
problem.
share you anyway. I will share you the notepad, right? Which are all the like I given for MapReduce, right? Means the Hadoop setup, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Similarly, I have the Hive one. I will give you today. If you want to try, you can try it out, and we will come back tomorrow, and then we'll do the Hive installation.
Okay.
I will show you. If you want. Yeah, see, before we go to install Hive installation, I need to explain a few things, right? So it's more of like installing Hadoop only. So you have to get the Hive the binary file, and then you have to do some setups. Basically, this we need to do. Right. So we can do tomorrow. Okay. Before that, I'll introduce few more concepts so that you can actually easily understand. Okay, so we have only 1 minute left. Can we disconnect and join the same link? Okay, I will stop here.
Okay.
Yeah.